InvestorIdeas.com Podcasts.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com Podcasts, looking at cannabis news, stocks to watch, as well as insights from thought leaders and experts. In today's podcast, we look at early announcements from Planet 13 Holdings Incorporated, trading on the CSE as PLTH and the OTCQX as PLNHF, Fire and Flower Holdings Corporation, trading on the TSX as FAF, Next Leaf Solutions Limited, trading on the CSE as Oils and the OTCQB as Oil FF, AGRA Organics International Incorporated, trading on the CSE as AGRA and the OTC as AGFAF, as well as Isracan Biosciences Incorporated, trading on the CSE as IPOT and the OTC as ISCNF. Starting with Planet 13 Holdings Incorporated, who announced today that it's received the top award in retail category during the MJ Biz Daily Awards Gala. The inaugural award was presented to the company as part of the MJ Biz Conference in Las Vegas, the world's largest cannabis conference and trade show, and the award program recognizes global leaders, both companies and individuals, for their excellence and impact on the hemp and cannabis industries. We're thrilled to be recognized by MJ Biz Daily as the leader in American cannabis retail. Our focus on creating a unique cannabis retail destination centered on customer experience, innovation, and entertainment has been key to our success in driving 2,000 paying customers on average per day and generating 10% of Nevada's cannabis sales, said Larry Scheffler, co-CEO of Planet 13. The award followed on the heels of the Clio Cannabis Award in Brand Design Planet 13 received weeks ago for the packaging of its new Dreamland Chocolates line of products, which was awarded by Clio Cannabis and High Times, that celebrates the creators at the forefront of the cannabis marketing and communications. And in addition to the MJ Retail Award and the High Times Design Award, one of Planet 13's bud tenders was recently voted as the top 10 bud tenders in America at the inaugural Bud Tender Awards. So Planet 13 getting a few pretty significant awards there. I've talked about them a bunch in the past. If you're not aware of them, they're obviously sort of the mega retail development in Vegas right now, known as the Superstore, which pretty much has everything, including it did have a cannabis museum for a time. And it's pretty obvious that they would be the top retail sort of producer for the US right now. Again, comparing them to any other more even developed market, even in California, there's nothing really comparable as far as size and scale. And within Nevada, again, they've really established themselves as a massive player, again, accounting for 10% of Nevada's cannabis sales. So as far as getting these awards as well, we're starting to see that more industry people are starting to pay attention to the actual award system in the cannabis industry as it's been a little bit more established. And those awards are starting to actually trade off into branding and marketing, as again, there isn't a lot of opportunities for marketing and branding in the cannabis space due to limitations and regulations. But these awards sort of do travel a long way, and especially for Planet 13, getting the top retail award for the US is definitely going to only bolster that they are sort of the mega superstore for the US market and probably continue to have more and more draw towards them. Looking next at the Canadian retail side, Fire and Flower Holdings Corporation today announced its financial and operational results for the 13 and 39 weeks ended of November 2nd. So some of the financial and operational highlights included $18.6 million in system sales, which included corporate and licensed stores, representing a 19.7% increase over the second quarter. Total revenue of $13.7 million at a gross profit of 34.7%, compared to $11 million in the second quarter and a gross profit of 36.5%. And also closing a few strategic investments, so with Ailment Couche-Tard, with the initial investment of $25.9 million, as well as close the asset purchase agreement with its wholly owned subsidiaries of Cannabis Cowboy Incorporated in relation to 8 cannabis retail stores in the province of Alberta, as well as launching High Fire. So there are also subsequent financial and operational results, which you can read more about. But commenting on this, with the emerging Canadian cannabis industry facing headwinds, Fire and Flower continues to deliver a track record of growth and meeting our objectives, shared Trevor Fencott, Fire and Flower Chief Executive Officer. We anticipate meeting our goal of 45 open and operating stores by the end of our fiscal year, and our industry-leading Sparks Perks members program ensures that our customers are engaged with the Fire and Flower brand as their cannabis retail of choice. So that's going through, again, that High Fire, where they have the Perks program, and currently have 50,000 members. So I've mentioned, again, a lot of the different Canadian retail sort of competitors. Paying attention to their financial results over the next coming months is going to be important to see sort of what trends are actually being established. And we are starting to at least see now sales are starting to be generated as more stores open up, especially in Ontario and BC, where again I've talked about a lot of times how there's a severe lack of retail infrastructure in those provinces. Now we're starting to see that change. And again, Fire and Flower is even preparing for their entrance into BC. And there's several of the sort of retail giants of Canada are now starting to spread themselves out. And as again these stores open up, we're starting to see which sort of strategies are actually paying off, whether it is through a perks membership program or through some sort of interactive sales system, whatever is actually starting to work. Again, we're starting to actually see the results of that. So paying attention to those results for any of the Canadian retailers over the next coming months will be important to sort of keep track of what's actually going on in the Canadian market, especially within the next coming months, where we start to see the Cannabis 2.0 products come onto the floor. Next, looking at Nextleaf Solutions, who announced that it's entered into a strategic agreement with a British Columbia-based cannabis processing equipment distribution company. So the agreement permits the licensee a non-exclusive basis to commercialize and distribute certain intellectual property, specifically 3 issued and pending patents related to post-extraction processing equipment developed by Nextleaf. So Nextleaf will provide the licensee with initial working capital and strategic support during the indefinite term of the agreement, and may terminate the agreement if the licensee does not meet certain minimum annual sales targets. So Oils will receive a royalty equity of 20%. And commenting about this, we believe this is an ideal partnership with a company whose management has a proven track record of building one of the industry's largest cannabis processing equipment distributors, stated Charles Akerman, Chief Financial and Officer of Nextleaf. This deal allows Oils to continue to work to efficiently monetize its patent portfolio globally. It also brings closer to its previously announced goal of $5 million, $10 million in gross revenue from IP licensing alone in the next 12 months. And we believe that IP licensing has the potential to represent up to 10 to 20% of our gross annual revenue, continued Akerman. So this is something we're starting to now see actually pay off in the industry, is the IP. That's something that was sort of, a lot of people were trying to snap up different technologies and processing equipment as well as sort of methodologies in the earlier stages of the industry. And now you're starting to see which actual extraction equipment or post-extraction equipment or methodologies or again patented techniques are actually being utilized and where the demand is for those. Again, for the Canadian market, at least right now, most of the LPs or any of the producers are looking heavily at getting most of their product turned into some sort of extract, again, for utilization for Cannabis 2.0 products. Also because a lot of their products are starting to degrade, as a lot of the sales of those initial harvests didn't actually go out to the Canadian retail market. As a lot of them are still sitting on a huge surplus, you're going to start to see more and more companies, again, paying to have some sort of partnership or agreement with extractors or extractor equipment processors, or again, people with patented technology or patented methodologies and techniques to turn all their product into extracts. So again, they actually can make profit off of it. And again, there's a higher profit margin in some of the extract markets, which is what people are anticipating for the Cannabis 2.0. Next, looking at AgriFlora Organics, who announced the company's 50% owned joint venture subsidiary, Eurasia Infused Cosmetics Incorporated, is preparing to import a suite of Toronto Wolfpack or Howl brand CBD performance products into the 2019 Rugby World Cup host nation Japan, as well as the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. So by way of an exclusive manufacturing and distribution agreement with the Toronto Wolfpack and Howl brands, AgriFlora is positioned as the nexus of the burgeoning CBD-infused performance products marketplace and vast captive audience of professional sports. The exclusive agreement is further bolstered by TWP's recent Super League promotion and transatlantic professional sports team status, affording AgriFlora with a noteworthy platform to capture material market share with the sports nutrition and rehabilitation segments. In October 2019, AgriFlora's exclusive CBD sports partner, the Toronto Wolfpack, was promoted to the 2020 RLF Super League competition, an accomplishment that positions the TWT in the highest tier of English Rugby League, boasting international broadcast reach to over 250 million homes. Brandon Boddy, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of AgriFlora, stated, 15 to 20 years ago, protein powder and performance supplements were health and wellness products only consumed by bodybuilders and triathletes. Today, these products have become ubiquitous in the daily routine of many, from accountants to tradespeople to stay-at-home parents, and we speculate that CBD's societal permeation will replicate this trajectory. And that's a pretty apt statement there as far as assessing how CBD is starting to take place in both the sports and sort of wellness communities. And it is starting to become much more sort of ubiquitous with common culture. And we are starting to see not only professional athletes and professional, yoga instructors or runners or any of these rugby players start to actually now translate down to the fans and again to the actual audiences of these activities. So it's pretty impressive that they're going to have this in Japan and for the Hong Kong as well for the actual 2019 World Cup for rugby. And they are one of the few sort of teams or brands that's out there right now that really has an actual full team sort of sponsorship behind the CBD product. There's other minor sports athletes out there who have been sponsored by a few other CBD sort of products out there. Nothing really for direct cannabis products. But we can definitely expect to start to see this pave the way into sort of the sports world moving forward, where if this is a successful campaign going through this, then you could see this probably replicated by many other companies, especially once CBD gets a little bit more clear regulations. It'll be a lot easier for, again, sports teams and a lot of these companies to sort of co-brand and partner together. And again, most of these athletes right now, the sports community and the wellness community are the biggest sort of supporters of the CBD sort of products right now. So you'll probably continue to see this grow and sort of expand. But right now, sort of the head of this industry is definitely AgriFlora Organics with their Toronto Wolfpack and Howl brands. Again, there's a few other minor things, but nothing quite to this scale. So it'll be exciting to see how this all pays off. And lastly, looking at Isracan Biosciences, who announced that it's entered into a memorandum of understanding for a joint venture for an additional farm property consisting of a late-stage build-out of a cannabis cultivation facility and an agricultural center proximal to several licensed producers west of Beersheba, Israel. So under the joint venture, the company will capitalize the build-out of the remaining construction in return for an economic interest in the project in compliance with Israeli laws. The Beersheba farm consists of 880,000 square feet of agricultural land, with two recently assembled steel greenhouse structures having a footprint of nearly 200,000 square feet. Matt Shatterton, VP of Operations for Isracan, recently visited the Beersheba farm and commented that we've been evaluating several opportunities to expedite our commercialization plans, and based on my inspection of the property, this farm offers the ability to shorten our time to market. The fundamentals are already in place, including building permits, and the basic infrastructure is already constructed, which accelerates timing. Once we conclude our due diligence efforts, the proposed plan will be to advance the technical efforts, including completion of the greenhouse and concurrently implementing a project characterization strategy in preparation for planting. There's still a lot of work to complete, but our efforts at the near Israeli farm have already provided us with regional business relationships, experienced advisors, and extensive preparations that we can readily extend and implement across both locations. Really, I've talked about this before, but a few of these low-cost production regions of the world, like Israel, again, there's a few companies that are going to be coming out of India. There's a lot of companies coming out of Latin America and the Caribbean. But these low-cost producers are really going to be a major factor in sort of the global cannabis industry moving forward. They might not impact the Canadian or U.S. markets anytime soon, but as far as the EU and, again, the global price sort of expectancy for the cannabis industry, they're going to severely impact it as, again, the cost expectations for what they'll be able to produce out of Israel or again out of some of these other low-cost regions of the world is pretty significant and pretty aggressive compared to any of the US or Canadian producers at the moment. And obviously now Isracan, through this partnership or through this memorandum of understanding and joint ventureship, will actually be able to increase their time to market and also improve their footprint. So that means that Israel will be coming online a little bit sooner than people originally anticipated. So in the next coming months, that'll be something to really pay attention to as we start to see those products actually come onto market, is how much that does impact the industry and the sort of global pricing, as well as how much of a competitor they are to the EU and how much sort of demand there is in that market. That's all for today's podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website. and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.